At 4 a.m. on July 6, 2022, a sudden detonation shattered the quiet of a rural Georgia field. When the smoke cleared, it revealed heavy damage to a massive 19-foot-tall granite monolith known as the Georgia Guidestones. The explosion fatally weakened the structure. Within hours, local authorities brought in backhoes to pull down the remaining slabs, quickly reducing the giant stone pillars to rubble. It is a strange end for a structure built to guide humanity through a post-apocalyptic future. Decades before that future arrived, the monolith was dismantled by the very population it was meant to aid. To understand how they got there, we have to go back to June 1979. We're in Elberton, Georgia, a rural town famous mostly as a hub for the granite finishing industry. A well-dressed stranger walked into a local granite company. He introduced himself using a pseudonym, Robert C. Christian, and claimed to represent a small, anonymous group of loyal Americans. Christian wanted to build an American Stonehenge. He presented a set of blueprints for a monument capable of surviving an impending nuclear or economic calamity. Assuming the man was a crank, the granite company tried to scare him off by quoting a price several times higher than any project they had ever done, the equivalent of about $400,000 today. Christian accepted the quote without hesitation. That blank check turned a bizarre pitch into a highly engineered reality, and it laid the groundwork for decades of intense public paranoia. The completed monument weighed nearly 240,000 pounds. The stones were engineered as a massive functional compass, calendar, and clock. A specialized hole was drilled right through the center pillar, permanently angled to track the North Star. Right below that, a precise horizontal slot was carved into the stone, perfectly aligned with the sun's annual travel to mark the solstices and equinoxes. Finally, a small aperture in the massive capstone allowed a single beam of sunlight to pass through every day at noon, acting as a permanent calendar indicator on the center stone. These exact alignments revealed the deep commitment to the project's purpose. If survivors ever woke up in a ruined world, this engine of granite would give them their cosmic bearings. While the engineering was precise, the public focus shifted entirely to the monument's message: 10 principles for an age of reason, carved into the massive outer slabs. The creators had these guidelines inscribed in 8 modern languages, including English, Spanish, Swahili, and Russian, ensuring that whoever was left after an apocalypse could read them. The very first guideline read, "Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature." The rest of the text proposed guiding reproduction to improve fitness and diversity, establishing a world court to resolve disputes, and balancing personal rights with social duties. The anonymous authors likely viewed this as a rational blueprint for managing a post-catastrophe world. To the general public, a mandate to cap the global population at 500 million people sounded like an endorsement of mass genocide. A few high-profile figures, like Yoko Ono, praised the inscriptions as a stirring call to rational thinking and conservation. The wider public strongly disagreed. They looked at that 500 million population cap and saw an endorsement of mass genocide and eugenics. Conspiracy theories quickly took root. People connected the pseudonym R.C. Christian to the secretive Rosicrucian order, then to the New World Order, and eventually directly to Satanism. That paranoia eventually manifested physically. By 2008, the stones were facing waves of serious vandalism, defaced with aerosol paint and graffiti demanding death to the New World Order. By the 2010s, the Guidestones had lost their original context. The site was now a lightning rod for cultural and religious panic. By 2022, the political temperature around the site was at a boiling point. A Georgia gubernatorial candidate even made removing this satanic monument a core part of her campaign platform. Which brings us back to the early morning of July 6th, when 4 decades of ideological tension finally snapped. The explosive device obliterated the slab containing the Swahili and Hindi translations. The blast force critically destabilized the 24,000-pound capstone resting on top. Despite all the meticulous engineering designed to withstand a cataclysm, the granite couldn't absorb a direct hit from the ideological hatred of its own era. During the demolition later that day, workers attempted to solve one last mystery. A granite ledger near the site had long promised that a time capsule was buried 6 feet below the surface. But when county officials brought in the backhoes and dug deep into the red Georgia clay, they found absolutely nothing. It was an empty grave. The aftermath was entirely unceremonious. The 5 acres of land were returned to the local farm owner to be used as a cow pasture, and the broken pieces of the monument were handed over to the local Granite Association. The sponsors of the Georgia Guidestones built a structure to outlast the end of the world. In the end, it was brought down by a fractured society that couldn't even agree on what the stones actually meant.